The morning mist clings to the volcanic slopes of Flores Island like ancient secrets refusing to be told. Deep within the Liangbua cave, something extraordinary lies buried beneath layers of sediment and time, evidence that will shatter everything we thought we knew about human evolution. But this story doesn't begin in a laboratory or with the careful brushstrokes of an archaeologist. It begins over 1 million years ago, when the world was a vastly different place, and creatures we never imagined possible were taking their first steps into an uncertain future. Picture Indonesia as it existed then, a chain of volcanic islands rising from primordial seas, connected by land bridges that would later vanish beneath the waves. The air thrums with the calls of creatures long extinct, while massive Komodo dragons, far larger than their modern descendants, patrol territories that stretch for miles. This is a world where survival isn't just difficult, it's miraculous. And into this harsh paradise steps a figure that defies every assumption we've made about human ancestry. Standing barely 3 feet tall, with arms that nearly reach the ground and a brain no larger than a chimpanzee's, this creature possesses something that sets it apart from every other being on the island, the unmistakable spark of intelligence burning in its dark eyes. The small band moves through the dense tropical forest with purpose that speaks of countless generations of accumulated wisdom. Their leader, a weathered female with scars marking decades of survival, pauses at the edge of a clearing. Her nostrils flare as she detects the musky scent of the giant Stegodon, elephant relatives that dwarf even the largest modern elephants. But these aren't just any Stegodons, these are the island giants evolved in isolation to reach proportions that would make modern elephants seem like ponies. She signals to her followers with gestures so subtle they might be mistaken for natural movement. Yet each motion carries specific meaning, developed over millennia of cooperation that has allowed their kind to not just survive, but thrive in one of Earth's most challenging environments. This is Homo floresiensis, the species that would one day be dubbed Hobbits by a world that couldn't quite believe they had ever existed. The revelation of their presence in Indonesia stretches back much further than anyone dared imagine. New evidence suggests these remarkable beings didn't just appear on Flores 50,000 years ago, as previously thought. They may have been calling these islands home for over 700,000 years, possibly even crossing back to the million-year mark that transforms our entire understanding of human dispersal. But how did they get there? The question haunts researchers because it suggests capabilities that challenge every model of early human migration. Even at the lowest sea levels in Earth's history, reaching Flores required crossing at least 12 miles of open ocean, a feat that demands not just courage, but sophisticated planning and technology. The matriarch crouches beside a stream, her calloused hands working with practiced efficiency as she selects stones from the riverbed. Each rock is tested for weight, balance, and the quality of its striking edge. Around her, the group fans out in a coordinated pattern that speaks of strategic thinking far beyond simple foraging. They're not just looking for food, they're executing a plan that requires each member to play a specific role. Suddenly, the forest erupts in a symphony of warning calls. Birds take flight in panicked clouds, while smaller mammals dash for the safety of burrows and hollow trees. The ground trembles with approaching footsteps that seem to shake the very foundations of the earth. Through the green curtain of vegetation emerges a sight that would terrify modern humans. A Stegodon bull in full aggressive display, tusks gleaming like ivory spears as it searches for the source of the disturbance it sensed. But the little people don't flee. Instead, they execute a maneuver so coordinated, so precise, that it could only be the product of cultural knowledge passed down through countless generations. 3 of them circle wide to the left, while 2 more take position on the right. The matriarch and her closest companion hold their ground directly in the beast's path, stones ready in hands that show not trembling fear, but steady determination. This is the moment that defines their existence. not running from the giants that share their world, but engaging with them on terms that evolution never intended. The Stegodon charges, its massive bulk crushing everything in its path, yet somehow the tiny humans dance between death and survival with a grace that seems almost supernatural. The coordinated stone-throwing begins with mathematical precision. Not wild, desperate hurling, but calculated strikes aimed at specific pressure points that generations of hunters have mapped across the bodies of these giants. The Stegodon staggers, confused by attackers too small to see clearly, but too persistent to ignore. And then comes the moment that separates these beings from every other creature on the island. As the great beast turns to face the primary threat, the matriarch doesn't retreat. Instead, she steps forward, meeting the challenge with a courage that seems to burn from somewhere deeper than instinct. In her eyes shines something that will echo across millions of years of evolution, the unshakable human refusal to surrender in the face of impossible odds. The hunt concludes not with the death of the Stegodon, but with its strategic retreat. The little people have achieved their goal without unnecessary violence. They've secured their territory, protected their young, and demonstrated once again why their kind has survived on these islands for hundreds of thousands of years longer than anyone believed possible. As evening settles over Flores, the group returns to their cave sanctuary, where the walls bear evidence of occupancy stretching back through time periods that boggle the mind. Stone tools lie scattered in layers that tell the story of technological innovation spanning hundreds of millennia. These aren't the crude implements of barely evolved apes, but sophisticated hunting and processing equipment that required genuine intelligence to conceive and create. The children gather around the flickering light of a carefully maintained fire, another testament to cognitive abilities that separate them from their animal neighbors. In the dancing shadows, they listen to stories passed down through an oral tradition that may represent one of the longest continuous cultural practices in human history. These tales don't just entertain, they preserve crucial survival information about weather patterns, animal behavior, and the subtle signs that mean the difference between life and death on a volcanic island. But perhaps most remarkably, new dating techniques applied to their archaeological remains suggest that these little people weren't just survivors. They were innovators. The stone tools found in the deepest layers of their caves show a sophistication that challenges our assumptions about what small brains can accomplish. They crafted specialized implements for different tasks, developed techniques for working volcanic glass into razor-sharp edges, and created composite tools that required planning several steps ahead. The implications stretch far beyond a single species on a remote island. If Homo floresiensis reached Flores over 700,000 years ago, they accomplished ocean crossings that we previously thought impossible for early humans. This suggests either that our ancestors developed seafaring capabilities far earlier than believed, or that these remarkable beings possessed unique adaptations that allowed them to master challenges their larger cousins couldn't overcome. Consider the physical demands of their existence. Living on an island populated by giant lizards, enormous elephants, and massive birds of prey, they had to develop survival strategies that went far beyond simple hunting and gathering. They needed to understand complex predator-prey relationships, master the seasonal patterns of dozens of species, and navigate social dynamics within their own groups that could mean the difference between cooperative success and deadly conflict. Their small stature, once seen as a disadvantage, may have been their greatest asset. While larger humans struggled with the caloric demands of maintaining big bodies and brains, these little people found an evolutionary sweet spot that maximized intelligence while minimizing resource requirements. They could hide in spaces too small for predators, move through dense vegetation without detection, and survive on food sources that wouldn't sustain larger beings. As the fire burns lower in their cave, revealing ancient paintings that may represent some of humanity's earliest artistic expression, we glimpse something profound about the nature of intelligence itself. These beings, with brains no larger than those of our earliest ancestors, somehow managed to develop complex societies, sophisticated technologies, and cultural traditions that persisted for hundreds of thousands of years. Their story forces us to reconsider fundamental assumptions about human evolution. Perhaps intelligence isn't just about brain size, but about the specific ways neural networks organize and process information. Perhaps survival isn't always about being the biggest or strongest, but about finding creative solutions that others never consider. The evidence continues to accumulate, painting a picture of cognitive capabilities that seemed impossible for beings so small. They worked volcanic glass with precision that required understanding of fracture mechanics, created tools so specialized that each served specific functions, and organized their living spaces in ways that suggest complex social hierarchies and shared responsibilities. But their greatest achievement may have been simply enduring. While other human species appeared and vanished across the changing landscapes of the Pleistocene, these little people maintained their foothold on Flores through ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and countless environmental challenges. They watched as sea levels rose and fell, as land bridges appeared and disappeared, as the very geography of their world transformed around them. Their persistence speaks to something fundamental about the human spirit, the refusal to accept limitations imposed by circumstances beyond our control. Faced with predators that could swallow them whole, they developed weapons. Confronted with environmental changes that destroyed other species, they adapted. Challenged by the basic physics of small bodies trying to survive in a world built for giants, they found ways to thrive. The final chapters of their story remain shrouded in mystery. Did they survive until the arrival of modern humans on Flores? Did they perhaps contribute genetic material to later populations, passing along adaptations that had served them for nearly 1,000,000 years? Or did they simply fade away, victims of changes too rapid or too extreme for even their remarkable adaptability to overcome? Recent discoveries suggest their influence may have extended far beyond their island home. Stone tools bearing their distinctive techniques have been found on neighboring islands, raising the tantalizing possibility that these master seafarers didn't just reach Flores. They used it as a base for further exploration. If true, this transforms them from isolated survivors into active participants in the grand human diaspora across Southeast Asia. The implications ripple through our understanding of human evolution like shockwaves from the volcanic eruptions that shaped their world. If beings with such small brains could accomplish ocean crossings, develop sophisticated technologies, and maintain complex societies, what does this tell us about the relationship between physical attributes and cognitive capability? Their legacy challenges us to expand our definition of what it means to be human. They may not have built cities or written books, but they created something perhaps more remarkable, a sustainable way of life that endured for hundreds of thousands of years without destroying the environment that supported them. In an age when our own species struggles with sustainability, their example offers lessons that transcend the academic study of human origins. As modern researchers continue to uncover their remains, each discovery adds new dimensions to our understanding of these remarkable beings. Advanced dating techniques push their presence on Flores ever deeper into the past, while detailed analysis of their tools reveals cognitive capabilities that approach those of much larger-brained species. The story of Homo floresiensis ultimately becomes a meditation on the nature of success itself. In a world obsessed with size, power, and dominance, they chose a different path, one that emphasized cooperation, innovation, and sustainable adaptation to environmental challenges. They proved that survival of the fittest doesn't always mean survival of the largest, but sometimes survival of the smartest, most adaptable, and most cooperative. Their small hands shaped tools that carved out a place in one of Earth's most challenging environments. Their small brains conceived strategies that allowed them to share space with creatures that could have eliminated them with a single step. Their small voices, long silenced by time, still speak to us across the millennia with a message both simple and profound, that intelligence, courage, and cooperation can overcome seemingly impossible odds. The mist still clings to the slopes of Flores, just as it did 1,000,000 years ago. But now it carries with it the whispered stories of a people who refused to accept the limitations the world tried to impose upon them. In their triumph over seemingly impossible circumstances, they offer hope that intelligence and determination can overcome any challenge, no matter how insurmountable it might seem. Their discovery reminds us that human evolution is far stranger, more complex, and more inspiring than we ever dared imagine.